Hola, ¿qué tal? Te damos la bienvenida a un nuevo capítulo de la Práctica Hace al Dinero. Y hoy día tenemos un nuevo invitado muy interesante.
De hecho, para mí es un invitado muy especial porque es un gran amigo nuestro, pero no solo eso, sino que también es mi mentor de negocios. Tiene una tremenda historia y es lo que queremos compartir contigo. Lo que sí, de nuevo, lo vamos a hacer en inglés porque nuestro invitado solo habla inglés. Conoce algunas palabras en español, pero son muy poquitas. Así que vamos a hacer el cambio de lenguaje. Here is Brendan, our friend. So Brendan, we are so happy to have you here today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's good to be here.
Yeah, and we don't tell much about you, so because we want to you tell something about you. What is your history? How you arrived to Andorra? Why? And how was your beginning?
Okay. So I was originally a teacher, then a social worker, then a psychologist and a therapist. And I ran a special facility in the UK for young people who are very difficult to work with. So they've been sexually, physically, emotionally abused or homeless or drug addicted parents or somehow in a dysfunctional family, and they were in the care of the local authority. And because I used to do that kind of work, I didn't like it because I think the children didn't get what they needed from it. So we started a private company, which was quite unusual in those days. This was in the 1980s. Anyway, in 1985, we started this on a little farm in Wales, which is an adjunct to England. And we were in the hills, just near the mountains. And we began that with just one person, my wife at the time, and me. And anyway, we ran it for 30 years, in actual fact, 35 years before I thought enough of that. I was 70 years old and we sold it. We started, and I think this is significant, we didn't start a business, we started a service for these young people. And we sold that service to local authorities, to government, basically. They complained about the price, but we did it anyway. And after years of doing that, eventually you run out of energy. I was 70 when I ran out of energy, so we had a good time there from the 45 years that I had. I beg your pardon, the 35 years that I had when I started to 70. So it was a long time, and it was time to stop. And by surprise, it had grown in value a lot. I know you talk about compounding. Well, this was like compounding energy rather than actual money, although we were getting money from the government. And when it came time to sell the business, we sold it for much more money than I thought we ever would. And because I wanted a different lifestyle and not to pay too much tax to the UK government, we moved to Andorra, where you only pay 10%. And then you can enjoy the fruits of your labours for years previously. So, and I didn't become interested in business until we were maybe 10 years old. I used to wear overalls and muck out pigs with the kids and ride horses with them, feed the chickens, grow the vegetables, all of that sort of thing. And I was more interested in that. But I had to become interested in business because we started making money that needed to be accounted for and justified as well. Anyway, we did that. And I took on business partners because one of the things I learned very early on is there's always somebody that can do it better than me, whatever it is. And I adopted that. And so eventually we had a CEO and it wasn't me. The first one left because I wouldn't let him do the job. I was on his shoulder. And after that, it was I learned the lesson that you appoint somebody, you pay them a big salary, let them do it. And that took a while.
Well, amazing story and resume about your life. But
I don't know if the word is resume.
No, it's like
I used the same when I was talking with Brendan.
Yeah.
And
it's not like a resume. It's like a excerpt, I think.
A story about my life, but it basically is my what we call in English a CV, a curriculum vitae. It's actually Latin.
It's the same. It's the same in Spanish.
Yeah.
Well, But you talked about something very important, I think, that you when you started the business, you were 35 years old. So you had a family in that time, and you had a business about something very complicated to work with. Like it's not easy to work in a social working space. For example, like with very damaged children, because damage that you said, emotional, physically, or maybe not them, but the environment was not the best for them. So I think that when you started, you can correct me, but you value more the mission and the objective than the process, because I can imagine that the process wasn't so soft. To move a children or a child from that environment to be part of this the social against from the community again, and heal him or heal her. It's not an easy process. And you say, okay, I will solve this problem. I will do this company in a very particular way, because you were doing something that maybe the government has to take care about it, and you did it by private. But how was that process? When you started, you had an idea, but when you leave it, how was the process?
Well, governments aren't very innovative. If you don't like what they're doing, then do something different. And that was my perspective at the time. And also, I was 35. I thought I could do anything. And most people don't. My entire family said, why are you giving up a job for life? Which is probably becoming a thing of the past now. But a job for life, a pension, security. You've got a wife. I had 3 children at the time and 1 on the way. And yet we sold our house, and we used that money to go to banks and say, please lend us some more. And almost everyone said no, because I had no experience. But
no business plans at all? Or
I did have a business plan. It was about the size of a cigarette packet. It was very small, and I knew very little about business. I knew nothing about borrowing money. My education in managing money was from my mother, who never spent a penny more than my father earned. And that was a very good grounding in the way money was at that time. It may not be so good today. You hear people telling you, borrow as much as you can and then die, which I'm not particularly interested in doing. But things change over time. Anyway, we went to Wales. We sold our house. Because it was what I thought was a good idea. So I was passionate about it. And when you're passionate about something, you can transmit that to other people. I asked somebody to help me find money, and his mother loaned me money. I went to a farm in Wales that they couldn't sell for 4 years because it used to be a really big farm. And now it only had 13 acres, which was perfect for what I wanted. It had a big house. It was cold and damp. And we got it at a really good price, and I managed to borrow all the money. Even my mother-in-law, who didn't really like me, she loaned me some money. And my wife at the time was a saint. She was willing to sell our own house to raise the first little bit of money, and it was a little bit because the house was mortgaged. And so there were a set of circumstances that in no way supported starting a business, but we did. Mm-hmm. And we moved down there, and we took the very first child, who, funnily enough, for his surname had exactly the same name as my first name, Brendan. So he was called something Brendan. I won't mention names, but anyway. And then a kid did us a great favor, and he set fire to the house only 18 months after we started, which was a real gift. Because it wasn't for him so much, but nobody got hurt. The house did burn down, but it was a 250-year-old house, so the walls were like this thick, but there was no insulation. They were cold. It was damp, and we rebuilt a new house inside the old one. And we also converted buildings adjacent to the house that were farm buildings, very good old farm buildings. And we built new accommodation in there for the children and the staff who lived in to look after them. So that was a very early, it looked like a chaotic mess to begin with, and it was, but it actually was a great gift, and we took it like that. And after a few years of looking after children in the way that I'd been taught to as a teacher, as a social worker, as a psychologist, as a therapist, I thought we're not really doing a very good job. So I was cornered by having to break a promise. I had promised local authorities, if we take your child, and these were the most difficult children in the United Kingdom, and we won't give up. Anyway, there was one lad who was very violent, very aggressive, would hit people almost daily, and didn't want to engage in anything. I mean, we'd had him for about 6 months, and it was coming to the point where the staff were pleading, Brendan, we've got to say no. And I didn't want to do that. We went on like that for ages, and it didn't get any better. So I had to phone his manager. He didn't have a social worker. He was so difficult. He had the manager of the social workers. And they couldn't do anything with him. I knew that. But I went to them and said, look, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to break my word, and we're going to have to expel this boy. Anyway, I said, the manager pleaded with me to give it a day, sleep on it and see. So I said, okay, I'll do that. I went back to phone him the next day. The kid met me as I crossed the yard to the office. He said, you're going to kick me out, aren't you? I said, what can I do? Everybody feels unsafe here, and we can't go on like that. And suddenly, out of nowhere, I just asked him, what would it take for you to stop hitting people, arguing with people every day, and not engaging with the process? And he had an answer like that. And that amazed me, because nothing in my education as a teacher, as a social worker, as a psychologist, and as a therapist, not one of those professional qualifications suggested I should ever ask a child, what would it take? And I did it, and he gave me an answer immediately. And funnily enough, we're sat in the middle of the mountains that he asked could he climb. So he said, I want to climb from the Atlantic Ocean along the Pyrenees that we're living in and end up in the Mediterranean Sea. And I said, that's interesting. Well, if you would agree to some conditions and I can find somebody that's willing to go with you, would you agree? And he said, yeah, don't kick me out. And so anyway, that was the key point. We discovered something. Well, when I say we discovered, I didn't discover it. I just asked a question and he gave me an answer. Now, traditional childcare in the United Kingdom in the mid-80s, mid-1980s, had not changed basically since the Victorian times, even earlier than that, where children in those conditions were kept in poor houses and then in special schools and in something that used to be called borstalls if they committed crime before they were 18. So it was quite revolutionary to ask a child what to do. I didn't know that at the time. I asked it out of desperation, not out of any. I can't claim any credit for that. Anyway, that made a huge difference because we did the project. It took 3 months. I found one member of staff who had it was all very lucky because one home had just closed that was therapeutic. And I met a member of staff and he was really good. So we employed him to go with this kid. Let's call him Jim. And he took Jim. Jim got arrested on the first day in France for stealing a bicycle. He threatened to stab the member of staff he was with, and he couldn't sleep for 3 nights. They were in separate tents climbing mountains. And to cut a long story short, it was immensely successful beyond our expectations. When I went out to meet them at the end of their journey, almost, he wasn't hitting anyone. He was engaging fully. And so he was just a different human being. And he came back and we carried on with the one-to-one work with him. Then I started asking all of the children one-to-one questions. What would it take? And they all had an answer, every single one. So we had kids in Colombia, kids in Australia, kids in various countries in Europe, kids in the United Kingdom, kids in Ireland. And I would visit them all at some point during their treatment, but it was always for 3 months, and it was always to make a program around them so that they got better. I'm going on a bit now, aren't I? But anyway, it was something that changed what we did completely. And it was simply asking a question. And that's the important bit of it for me. We asked a question that I'd never heard anybody ask me as a child, ask anybody else that I was aware of as a child. And I think that passion comes out of wanting to do something that actually makes a difference. And I think you can translate that to anything at all.
Yeah, passion is a healing force. For example, for you, the passion was the action that moved to create the business. And for the kids, the children, the passion was the thing that maybe, I don't know if all of them, but I think most at least of them heal themselves. So the passion, for example, this kid named Jim was that, and after he did it, he says, I'm a new person, and was just one thing. So, and it's very important, I think, to find your own passion, not just for healing something, just for living, because for you was a change too. So you changed your work for passion, and you changed the children's lives for passion, for their own passion.
Totally, and it didn't happen immediately. I was replicating what I'd previously done for the first 5 years. It was only after the 6th year I began asking that question out of desperation, not creatively, but I just did not want to send someone away. And it's important to say that we weren't even creating a business, and this is important, I think. We were creating a service, and the money just followed. I think the universe is absolutely waiting for you, for me, for anyone to come up with something that's a good idea for everyone in the picture. So it worked for the local authorities, it worked for the parents who couldn't parent, it worked for me and even my family, despite the fact that most families would not have put up with what we did to begin with. And it worked as a service first, and the money just followed. And this is really important, even when we quadrupled the cost by agreeing to send kids to Colombia, Australia, France, Spain, Portugal, Ireland, all over the place, that cost money, and I never bothered about the money. I just thought, and I used to ask questions. I said to the directors of local authorities, would you do it for your child? Of course, the answer was always yes. And that's the basis on which we worked. It was unrealistic. It wasn't my original idea. It came from an answer of a disturbed boy telling me exactly what he wanted to do. And then every other person had exactly the same response to the same question, but it was obviously in different places and in different forms.
Yeah.
So anyway, again, the important thing was we weren't chasing money, we were chasing quality of service, and that was what made the difference.
Yeah, and I can say that many people think about companies or making money is always related to take profit of it, or to take advantage some way to something. But you are talking something different now with your experience, that you start with something that you like, you want to change, you want to make value for people, for the world, and then money follow you. So I think this is very important, and I want to say it because many people think that make money is something bad, or you need to do bad things to get it. But that is not always the case. You're an example of that.
Well, if there's nothing wrong with people wanting to make money. Many of my friends set out to make money and they did a good job. I think it depends on how you interpret your place in the universe, in this world, because many people set out just to make money, but money is nothing except an exchange of energy, in my view. Mm-hmm. So if I want to exchange energy, so I was giving my energy to those kids and they were actually giving it to me in various and some not so legitimate ways. And the universe has a way, I think, of conspiring to assist you in doing something good that other people benefit from. So I know what you guys do is help people to manage money and to increase their wealth. And I think that's a good thing to do, so long as nobody is being hurt in the process. And whenever that's the case, I think it wouldn't matter if I was a miner, a woodworker, a factory worker. If I wanted to do something that benefits other people, then the universe conspires to assist in that. So loans come from nowhere. People want to contribute to it. The right people show up at the right time to work with you, and the right opportunities come. And some challenges come. It's not necessarily all easy, because people will disagree with what you're doing. People will say they'll do something and then they won't do it. Which reminds me of the other really important thing to have if you're aiming to succeed in anything. It's you've got to have integrity. You've got to do what you have said you will do. And as we know, you've got to do it by the time you say you'll do it. Or if you can't, you've got to announce, I can't, and I've changed my mind about that. It's not actually my definition of integrity. It's a definition I learned 30 years ago. And it's very important, because then people can trust you and trust your word. And
I was thinking about the way that you did. I mean, you start a business with not a clear view that how it finished at the end. No, you was just starting. And you did a leap of faith, not just you. Many people around you, even your mother-in-law in that time, give a leap of faith for you.
Even.
And what do you recommend to people? I mean, do you think that is a good way to find your passion, your path to give something to the world? In your case was that, in our case it's financial education, but anything, if you don't harm nobody, But find that, and after that, trust with a leap of faith, or you now with your experience believe that you need something like a preparation or something behind. You know what I mean? In your experience, you did a lot of leap of faith, like a lot of faith on there, and everything went good. Not you have challenge and things, but at the end you have a good story, and you did with faith. But do you recommend the same to somebody who's starting now?
Well, it's not just faith, is it? Because a lot of people have faith in this, that, or the other, and then the other people think they're crazy. So it's more to do with nothing happens in your life, in my life, unless you take one step, which is called the first one. Mm-hmm. And many people don't have the courage to make the first step, because life is comfortable, and you can look at life as something you survive or something that you create in. And surviving is not very interesting. And, offices around the world, factories around the world, fields around the world, got people in them who are not very happy, because they're not challenging themselves, they're not challenging the community they live in. They're taking the safe route, which is the middle one. And that describes a lot of people in the world. So I think if you don't want to do that, and you see an opportunity to do something that's happening over there better than it's currently happening, then take the opportunity. And I think it's probably a natural law, I don't know this for sure, that the universe will conspire to assist you if you want to do something good, where people benefit, the place you're in benefits, that actually gives you a profit too. Now that might sound strange to people, but if you don't make a profit, even if you're just selling lemonade at your front door, if it costs you, let's say 10 cents to make the lemonade and you're selling it for 11 and you stand there for an hour before you sell it, you're not making a profit because your time was taken up. So to me, the idea of profit is absolutely a very, very important thing to work into what you're doing. And by the way, people would say, well, charities don't do that. Oh, yes, they do, because the chief executive gets paid a huge salary, and for every euro that you give to that charity, 70 cents of it will go to the staff who are asking for money on the street, designing, marketing, and so even a charity has to make a profit in order to do what it sets out to do. In fact, it makes a huge profit compared to what it actually spends on whatever it's collecting money for. Not that there's anything wrong with that, it's just that it takes effort and energy to make a profit. But if you don't make it, you don't do anything.
And now let's talk about money, but in your history. For example, when you started the business, or in that period, have you seen a change in the way that you were spending your money at the beginning, now that you are retired? There is something that was changing in the process of like your behavior, not the civilization. Or so, for example, at the beginning I was careless, for example, and now I'm more I have more interest to manage my own money. There is something that have changed.
There is, and I think that comes out of something to do with your family life before you develop attitudes about money, and you either listen to them or you don't. One of my mother's favorite expressions, and she was a really good, loving mother, was that money doesn't grow on trees. Well, and the trouble with that is, on reflection, is that people think it's a scarce resource. I believe that it's an abundant resource. You simply have to be the magnet that attracts it to you. And that's about passion, hard work sometimes, but not even always, and an idea that's attractive to somebody that you want to sell it to or to provide it for. So my own vision of that is create a great service, make sure it's profitable, and do it the best you can. And don't take any notice of what anyone else says about what you want to do. That's irrelevant. You're responsible only for yourself, not for anybody else, unless, of course, they're vulnerable people like we were taking care of. But I believe that if you look after yourself and your family and the people around you, and your business activities are also created to benefit other people, not necessarily looking after them, but providing them with, say, good food, providing them with water, providing them with shelter. So a house builder is doing something very useful. So it's not particular to any vocation or any passion. It's universally applicable if somebody benefits from it. So, and I still have the same set of rules now that I invest money as I did when I was working. They're slightly more sophisticated, and I've learned a lot from others along the way, but it's the same thing. So long as you do no harm, so long as people are treated the same, whether it's the boss or the person sweeping the floor, so long as there's a purpose to it, like to make people feel better or their health better or their conditions better. So it's all about a very comprehensive, I wouldn't say it's all about for me, whether if something is comprehensively beneficial, then that's a good thing to do. But you've got to take the first step. And you will probably be alone when you do that, unless somebody's mentoring you. That helps, but it's not good enough on its own. The passion has to come from the person.
Yeah, you talk about the other people say when you start that we live too. When we start, many people say that you are crazy.
Yeah.
Literally. But how you discriminate with which voices listen and which ones no? Because some people want to take care of you, and you need to be like, you need some perspective to discriminate which ones are good for you and which ones are not. What was your criteria to discriminate?
I didn't discriminate. What I did was I had an idea, and I'd worked in that field for some time. I knew what did not work. And I wasn't absolutely certain what would work, but I knew it wasn't that. And so I think of it, perhaps this is a good time when there's bombs flying around the Middle East at the moment, but they're not being set off by people in fields. They're set off by someone at a computer now. And so this bomb flies down that line and it goes to there, wherever there is. And I used to think of my aim and my business in similar terms. It was like nothing is going to knock that missile off course. So, and the missile was basically my idea. And I remember my brother driving me down to see this pretty ramshackle farm in Wales, saying, "Are you crazy? Yeah, you've got a job, you've got a pension, you've got 3 children and a wife to look after." I said, "I'll look after them." But he couldn't understand it. And it was a big difference between him. He was happy selling insurance and cars and different things he did in life. And that's okay. But it wasn't okay for me, because life wasn't just about surviving it. It was about making my life better and making the life of all the people around me better. And I would apply that when I was playing rugby, and I'm not a big man, but boy did I store up enough stress during the week to look for a legitimate way to spend it. And I loved playing rugby because I could go out on a Saturday and really go with some aggression. Anyway, which I'd built up all week. And that was part of it for me, because I think you live your life with integrity if you do everything and treat everybody in the same way as you go. And for me, that applied to playing rugby. It applied to, if I was painting a wall, I'd paint it the best way I could. If I was building a stone wall, which I did with my son, then again, I'd do that the best way I could. And I think if everybody went about their work doing the best that they can, the world will be a very, very different place.
Yeah. You have talked about actions until the moment, like creating a good service, put it on market, and you will get money and you will be happy in the process. But what do you think about mentality? Because a lot of people says that, for example, to achieve $100,000, euros, pounds per year, you have a one kind of mentality, but to achieve, for example, $1 million is another mentality. So what do you think about that? Because it's not an action, it's like
just an amount. Yeah, just a difference of amount. Yeah.
But your brain is wired differently or not? Do you think, what is your opinion about that?
I actually think it's got nothing to do with making 100,000 or a million or 10 million or whatever number of million. I think it's to do with I enjoyed the fruits of my previous labor, put it that way, in the sense that I couldn't care less when I was doing it how much money I was making, so long as it was a little bit more than I was spending to do it. As it happened in excuse me, in my business, it required a lot more. And I would simply say to government, what would you do for your child? And there's no limit on that for me. I never will put it on. And so we did things that were exceptionally innovative in the eyes of government, and sometimes unacceptably innovative. But still we did it in spite, and people threatened to close us down. I remember one time the fire department came. We built this new range of buildings, or renovated them. And the fireman came in and said, you haven't got any fire exit notices. And so I said to the guy, have you got some in your house? And of course he said, no, but that's different. This is an institution. I said, do you mind? This is not. This is somebody's home. And they're not people coming to a hotel who don't know the building. They're not people staying for 1 or 2 nights. This is their home for 1 year, 2 years, maybe 3. And that's very different. But you're brought up in an environment where if it's not a house, you insist upon things that you would never have in a house. Well, this isn't exactly a house, but it's not an institution. So sometimes you have to fight government as well to do what you want to do. But the important point for me is, don't just accept what the norm is. Because let's face it, the norm is survival. It's boring. It's really boring. And for me, that wasn't enough. And for many of the staff that came to work with us, it wasn't enough. And by the way, we started with myself, my wife at the time, and one other person. When we did sell the business in 2020, there were 450 people helping us. So we had that many employees. And it just grew and grew and grew. And there's only one reason I can give you for that. And that is, we simply provided the best possible service we could for that group of people, for those children, and for the local authority. Because we were providing our service had 2 users really. One were, the most important one was the children. The other one, which was very important because they paid the bills and they had the problem, what to do with this kid who's stealing cars, sniffing glue, drinking alcohol, dipping into drugs, fighting people, and when they go to their family, their parents are doing exactly the same stuff. And we were very fortunate because after we got into loads of trouble with the government, the new economic foundation, it still exists as far as I know in the UK, as a research organisation that's independent. And they studied our service, they studied a government service, and they studied an NGO service. Basically, if they spent £1 with us, they would save the government £4 in the future, because if we weren't doing what we were doing, then those kids would have come on to graduate into criminality, mental health issues, physical health issues, drug issues, alcohol issues, prison population. So, and the government has to pay for all of that. So by spending £1 with us, they saved themselves £4 more. And I didn't know that until these people asked us, could they do the research? And when you're doing that, that's a good feeling. The government don't get it because governments only have 4-year plans, because at the end of that, they need to get re-elected. And if they don't do something useful, like save money usually, then they don't get re-elected. I wasn't interested in that at all, because for human beings, that 4-year cycle is a survival technique. It's not an innovative, creative, or helpful technique. And I just made some more enemies in government saying that, but I don't really mind, because it's true all over the world. It's not to one place in particular.
Yeah. So you described that you were creating your wealth was like a compound interest, without looking the goal, just doing your best every single day.
Yeah, but the wealth wasn't money. The wealth was satisfaction, and the money follows that.
Yeah.
And that's a really important distinction, I think, because personally, I could never get that excited about having tons of money. Accidentally, I can. Not accidentally, that's perhaps a little bit too casual. But when you purposely set out to make a bunch of money and you don't care how you do that, I don't think the universe is as supportive to you as it would be if you were doing something for everybody in your sphere. And to me, that's very important because there's, I used to have a friend I played rugby with, and he used to say, there are no pockets in shrouds. You know what is a shroud? It's what they embalm dead bodies in.
Ah, okay.
So there's no pockets. So if you make a ton of money and you die, so what?
Yeah.
That's the end of it. And I think that's a good saying because, again, money is a token. It's a representation of how much energy you've put in to what you do. And it's usually fairly well distributed, perhaps except in extreme capitalism. It's always the guy at the top that gets the most. And that's perhaps seen as not so fair. But for most ordinary people, earning money is a representation of how much energy they've spent doing whatever they do to get that piece of paper. Well, they don't anymore, do they? They get a bank transfer. But it used to be written on a piece of paper, I promise to pay the bearer $1 or whatever it is. And it's pretty much the same arrangement, it's just electronic now. And maybe that won't last forever either. But I think the more you do that's innovative and the more comfortable you make your own life, the better other people's lives are around you. And that's a good thing.
That's made me think about two beliefs that are very popular always. One is that money brings happiness to your life, or more happiness. And the other is that money changes people. What do you think about that two beliefs?
I think they're both probably wrong. In that I see very wealthy people who are not happy, so it doesn't necessarily make you happier. It can do, and I'm very happy with my life and I have some money. The other thing, what did you say was the second?
That is the change people, that good people could transform in bad people because of it or things like that.
I think money is less likely to do that than many other things, like consciousness, for instance. I think if somebody takes time at the beginning of the day to figure out what they're going to do with the day, or not to figure out anything, just to sit there quietly and maybe do the same in the evening, I think that's more likely to result in change than, today I got $1,000, so I'm rich today. Well, tomorrow I may not be. And if today makes me happy, but tomorrow makes me sad, then money hasn't done its job, has it? Because money isn't of itself important. It's a representation of energy again, isn't it? And you can get, well, when we've got the energy of a very strong wind like a typhoon or a hurricane, that's energy, very strong energy, but doesn't do anybody much good. And money can be the same. You can have a ton of money and still be a miserable person, or somebody that doesn't like other people, or abuses other people, or uses other people to make more money. And I think that money and power go very closely together, so they're not necessarily always, in my view, a good thing. But that doesn't mean it's a bad thing either, because I think I definitely have a more comfortable life because I've made some money. I feel very content about that because I know that I didn't do anybody over to make money. And that's important. I think when you get to the end of your earning career, when you look back, you don't want to be thinking, oh, I shouldn't have done that, or I could have done that better. I'm not suggesting that people who actually have that attitude to money would even bother to do that anyway. So I think money's very important, but only as a token of your energy and what you bothered to learn about. what you've bothered to give your energy to. So if you're giving financial advice to people, you've had to figure out what's good advice. And that didn't come, as a dart out of heaven, whatever that is. You've had to study and work at it. And I think it's absolutely legitimate to do whatever you want to do, and try and do it the best you can. And basically, that's doing something yourself to get better at what you want to do. And so long as that's not hurting somebody else, I wouldn't mind what that was. Why would you? Because it's making the world a better place. And a lot of people are happy to do things, get money, and the world is not a better place because of it. Just look to the Middle East today. There's a lot going on there that's not doing any good for anyone, under political and social and religious even differences. And nobody's going to win, but a lot of people are going to make a ton of money out of making the stuff that you throw at each other, basically. And that doesn't interest me.
I think when you talk about this, you can tell the wisdom of your life, how all the things that you have learned in the process. Because many people, I think, when you are more younger people, just focus on the money, and like the final objective is money, and you are talking about something completely different. It's like the money will follow. The money is something that you will use in the process, but it's not what you have to try to achieve. Is you have to achieve experiences, doing something good for the world, the universe, the community, and I think it's a change of the way that you have to think to get at the end the money. But it's like rearrange the order of the cause and effect. It's not money cause happiness. Probably happiness cause money. It's the other way, the road, and it's the other way that you have to think about the money. It's not the final objective. It's just one of other important things in the process.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with money. It's just a token. It's what you do with it and how you accumulate it and what you spend it on. Because, I have a very good friend. Well, I haven't seen him for years actually, but I used to ski with him, and he is, as far as I know, a billionaire now. He used to love going to racetracks in Ireland and take bets off other people. And, they use a particular kind of language to do that. And he learned how to do all the signs. And he probably wouldn't get a degree in any university, but he knows that particular thing so well. And he's become really wealthy. I've been to his house, and it's in a beautiful place in Ireland on a river. And he's done extremely well. Now, to me, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't bet because I'm no good at it. I'm rubbish at betting. But he makes his money out of betting. And some people will watch betting adverts on TV, especially if there's a football game, a boxing match, or anything to do with men. So mostly men, isn't it? And that's okay by me, because people make their own minds up what to do with money. And they may be spending their children's school meal money, or they may be spending their own beer money, or they may be winning now and again, which I think is what keeps people going to do it, or the hope that they will. But so, the important thing is, it's not the money itself, it's what you choose to do with it. And money isn't good or bad, it just is a token. In my view, it's a token of your energy, of everybody's energy. And some people spend a lot of energy generating a little bit. If you work in a field in India, you work very hard for very little money, and you get to eat from it, and that's about all. But if you do it in America or Europe, you can work very little, get a ton of money, because you've educated yourself in a particular way. So now you can, let's say, code a computer. That's highly valued now, so you get well paid. It's still just money, a token for what you have decided to do with your life. And the great thing about life is there's only one certain thing. You will die, and then it won't matter. So the point about it is make it better for the people around you and for yourself. And that, the way the world is structured, requires some money. So earn some doing something you're passionate about. It can be anything, can't it? So long as it's not illegal, so long as it's not injurious to other people, so long as you can keep your energy pouring into it, because all it is a reflection of your energy. And I think that's all I would say about investing, about because that's what I do now. But it took a friend of mine to remind me that you don't have to just put your money into Coca-Cola or somebody making tanks or whatever. You can actually put it somewhere where it's some use. And that to me is the same thing. And I needed to be reminded of that. My friend of mine who wrote a book on integral investing. But it's the same thing. And it all harks back to one philosopher in Colorado called Ken Wilber, who had a very, very impressive view of consciousness. And that what happens between your ears is very much more important than what comes out of your mouth or what you do with your body when you're earning a living. I think if people were more conscious about the needs of others and about their own needs even, not their own wants, but their own needs, then the world will be a better place.
Yes, for sure. It will be. In fact, there's a thing that I want to remind the people that we had in the interview, and we want to thank you about it, is remind us all that the money is energy, and you can direct your energy voting with him every single time. If you are investing, if you are buying things, if you are doing whatever, you can vote. So that is a happy way to see money if you see it in that particular way. So thank you for being here, for sharing with us your experience, your views, your everything. And I hope the people can see this story like an inspiration, because I know, especially in Chile, many people think that teachers cannot achieve great things. And I think you're an example that is not true. So,
and I was a teacher.
Yeah, I know. In fact, teachers have this stigma on them. They say, I'm just a teacher, I cannot do more than this. So I think everybody can do more if they see the right side of this, that making value, a real value, and with passion, the money will follow. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brendan. Y esperamos que te haya gustado también este capítulo y te dejamos invitado o invitada a un siguiente de la práctica Hace al Dinero.
Muchas gracias Brendan, y nos vemos en un siguiente. Besitos.
Chao, chao.